Good morning and good afternoon. I'm Trudy Murata, a volunteer community ambassador with AARP here in Northern Virginia. From our earliest beginnings, AARP has championed lifelong learning, and that's why AARP is thrilled to bring you our fifth year of Tuesday Explorers, a lifelong learning program offered every Tuesday from January through May at 3 o'clock East Coast time for all of our curious explorers. For more than 60 years, AARP has been a wise friend and a fierce defender, helping individuals to ensure that their money, health, and happiness live as long as they do. And AARP has earned this reputation as a wise friend and fierce defender through trusted information, tools, and advocacy designed to protect the health and financial security of older Americans and empower them to choose how they live as they age. By promising to act as this wise friend and fierce defender, AARP is helping people who are 50 plus and their families feel confident, in control, and secure as they age. As this wise friend in your corner, AARP helps you protect yourself and your loved ones from fraud with our Fraud Watch Network program. Get healthy and stay healthy. Care for loved ones, make connections, plan a trip, learn new technologies, attend a class, and have fun like what we do with our Tuesday Explorer program. So I hope you will continue to take advantage of these opportunities and much more. And now let me introduce to you our guest speaker today. Phil Lilienthal founded Global Camps Africa in 2004. He was an attorney in Reston, Virginia, who for 30 years was the owner and director of Camp Winnebago in Maine. Mr. Lilienthal, who joined the Peace Corps following law school, started Ethiopia's first residential summer camps in 1967 and 68. He and his wife, Lynn, were Peace Corps volunteers in Ethiopia. Phil later became an attorney advisor in the Peace Corps' General Counsel Office and regional director in the Philippines and deputy Peace Corps director in Thailand. And with that, Phil, I'm going to turn it over to you to tell us everything else you've been up to since then. It's all yours.
Well, half an hour should be enough time to discuss a lifetime, but I'll try to boil it down. Great to be with all of you, and thank you, Trudy, for extending the invitation and making it so easy to join you. As Trudy said, I have a little bit of a dissonant career with law and camp. The two don't normally go together, but my father paved the way. He was a camp director of the same camp in Maine and was a lawyer. And usually, if you're going to do camp and it's not a humongous big camp that requires 24/7 attention all year long, a normal other occupation to have would be teaching. And I just didn't see myself settling down into a teaching role. I liked the freedom that law provided. And it was interesting because when I graduated law school and my wife graduated social work school, we were married in law school. We got the unusual opportunity of working in our fields and going to Ethiopia. Within 6 months of my being there as a lawyer, I was advising Ethiopian government ministries on various legal matters that they didn't have the capability for themselves. The opportunity came up to start a camp, and that was the roadmap for the rest of my life, to have law, which I continued with in Ethiopia, and to do camp. And it was just amazing how it worked out. And the big aha moment was when the kids came to camp and I saw that they reacted to camp exactly the same as American kids react to camp. Now, in 2025, this might not be a real aha, but back in 1966, it was amazing. I mean, we hardly knew well, to be truthful, we didn't know where Ethiopia was when we got selected to go there. And most people didn't know where Ethiopia was. So to deal with Ethiopian kids, and we thought that the cultural gap would be enormous, the customs would be enormously different, and they are, but camp is a real common denominator for kids being away from home, experiencing the love, the kindness, the acceptance they get in a camp situation, and for being out on their own for the first time. So this led me to think, well, I have a camp ready made for me at home, and my father wanted me to go into camp with him. When I'm finished with that, if there's still a need, I'd love to get back to Africa to do camps. So fast forward 35 years later, and I had been running camp for quite a while in the States, and I still had this passion for wanting to get back to Africa. And you can see with the girl on the screen, she's not unusual. This is a typical, wonderful, warm, beautiful human person that we're working with. Now, where I went to, I won't give you all the details because it's interesting to me, but it really shouldn't be to you. But I ended up in South Africa. And the big thing that I had to do in going back to Africa in 2003, when I was looking, was to find a partner that would be able to do the administrative work of camp when I wasn't in country because my wife and I had grandchildren by then. I was 62, and we really didn't want to live abroad the way we did back when we were fresh out of graduate school. So South Africa is where we found a institution that was interested in running a camp that would work with us on the project. And in fact, they ran it with us for 7 years. And then we established our own backroom administrative capability, gave more people work, brought our own counselors up into the ranks, and we've been doing it on our own for the last 14 years. Uh, what is so special about camp in Africa? Uh, the 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 one overlay, the one thing I had lived with for years and couldn't really find a way to implement was I thought camp was a very underpowered institution. I thought camp could do a lot more for kids than to give them, although it's great, fresh air, friendships, nature, camping skills, athletic skills, and all the things that our normal camps give us. If you went to camp or your kids or grandkids, you know that it has a special place in most people's hearts. What I wanted to do with this new camp, where we could write our own rules, was to give them a way to address the biggest problems in their lives that might be preventing them from reaching a productive, healthy adulthood. What are the biggest potholes in their career development that we could have something to do with in the short time that they would be at camp? So the biggest thing in South Africa when we got there was HIV and AIDS. And it wasn't being discussed at home or in the schools or in churches. It was taboo. I mean, incredible that the country with the most people with HIV and AIDS, that the whole prevention of it and the dealing with it in a way where you could live a normal life if you were on treatment wasn't being discussed. So that was our big first step. Then we started peeling off the layers of the onion with, of course, the South African staff contributing and social workers and health professionals. And the biggest other things are abusive behaviors. Kids are abused in so many ways, sexually, psychologically, fiscally, food deprivation, just name it. This is the sort of the way kids are brought up. And we wanted to at least make them aware of it. We're not changing the way society works, but we want them to know that there are laws preventing these kinds of abuses and that they have rights. So we have our program, and then we get into things like sexuality, teenage pregnancy, xenophobia. There's a lot of fear and abuse of foreigners who come into South Africa, um, and just knowledge about this. We just want to explore it in a public health way, not to make somebody right or wrong, but just to give the information. Now, one of the reasons I want this bear, the teddy bear picture up, this girl is carrying the teddy bears for her whole cabin. There's a wonderful organization in Minnesota that has knitters all over the world make teddy bears, and they distribute them to children who are affected by HIV and AIDS. And they give teddy bears to programs that are dealing with these kids. And we are a happy recipient of their largesse. And we use the bears to be babies. And when we're teaching them about pregnancy and child rearing, we make sure that they're treating their bear as their baby. And if we see a bear on the floor, if we see a child holding a bear upside down, any kind of things that if it were a baby, it would be an abusive situation, we point it out to them. So it's a wonderful win-win. Now, this is the interactive learning that we do. We don't sit them down and give them a list of 10 ways you should treat a baby. We have it be with bears walking around camp, and they're learning as they're doing. And this is one of the ways that makes a very big impact in their lives. All of our um, life skills interventions, all our work in life skills is asking them, what do you think is the way to do this? And we have usually about 25 kids in a group, and we'll go all around the room and say, what do you think should happen? What do you think should happen? And we don't tell them that they're right or wrong. Just at the end of the discussion, the counselor leading it will say, well, this is the way this has been tested, and these are why the other ways are not as effective. So it's these kids leave camp. Our camp sessions are 8 days long, only 8 days. They're away from home. The the only material things they're getting is a camp t-shirt, a hat, a cap for the sun, and three good meals a day, a bed of their own to sleep in. These are both very unusual things, and a cabin where they can open the windows without fear of bad guys coming in. And this is very hard to do. They are afraid to open the windows when they get to camp. So we are just exposing them to ways of life that they just don't know about. And from our point of view, it's not doing it's we don't have to study on what we need to do. We are doing what we do with our kids at home. Ask them how they're doing. Is there anything bothering you? What would you like to talk about? They don't get asked that. Their role as a child in South African Black society is to speak when you're spoken to and to do the things your parents ask you. And so we're just opening up a world to them that's completely different from what they've experienced. The amazing thing is that we get no pushback from the parents. So when these kids come home and they are asserting themselves more, the parents think this is wonderful. Their kids are becoming whole. Teachers in their schools, without knowing who's specifically been to camp, will tell us, we know exactly who's been to camp. It's the kids who are speaking up. It's the kids who are now leaders. It's the kids who are questioning us as teachers and asking us to discuss things in more detail. So it shows in all ways of life. Now, two things that are very different than from American camps. We only allow the kids to come to camp one time. And that's because we've got so many kids that we're trying to deal with in Soweto. Soweto is the township that's right next to Johannesburg. Population's about 2 million people, and there are no other camps like ours dealing with life skills in any way approaching the way that we're doing it. So we figure we need to churn out a lot of kids coming to camp. Now we don't just kiss them goodbye at the end. We have clubs that meet in their neighborhoods every other week for about 5 hours on a Saturday. It's like a day camp. And they are welcome to come as many times as they'd like. There's no limit, but we can't take them back to camp because that's much more expensive and it takes much more supervision. Uh, the other thing is that we deal with life skills. And the third thing that's come about really very organically is that we have camps during the school holidays in September, October, December, and then March, April, whenever those holidays come up. But we don't run camp during their June, July holiday, which is their winter. It's really quite cold, even freezing. We've even gotten a little snow. During the day, it's not bad, but at night, it really is quite chilly. And it's not the greatest time to have a camp session. So our counselors who are not attending schools or don't have other jobs are free during the American summer, and they have become a very desirable counselors at US summer camps. And US summer camps are trying to become more global, giving an international flavor to their camps. And the big thing that they're lacking is international counselors with camp experience. They get people who know how to windsurf, play tennis, do arts and crafts. But in Europe and South America and Africa and Australia, there aren't many camps like the US camps. Our camp is exactly like a US camp. No surprise. Look who started it. My only background is US camps. So they are well prepared to be counselors at US camps. And every summer we have about 20 or 25 of them coming to the US to be to be counselors. So this is a bucket list opportunity for them. A kid growing up in terrible poverty in Soweto can only dream about getting to the US. But not only do they get to the US with us, they're valued members of a camp staff. It's not in any way a handout or trying to be a do-gooder. The camps are in it for their interest, and they know that these are great counselors. So let me just bounce around to a few more slides. Our theater program, very homegrown, and rather than doing scripted shows, at the end of the week at camp, each group has written its own show. Now, the bad news is they do pretty much what has been their experience. So a lot of it is about drunken fathers, abused mothers and children, uh, drug killings, and it's pretty grisly. But we want them to be able to contribute to what the plays are about. And their dancing and singing is it's a way of life. When they line up for meals at the dining room, they never line up for a meal. They're always singing and dancing when they're in line. So it's just the spirit and the joy of the whole atmosphere is infectious is an overworked term, but it is. You just smile being around them. That these are kids with nothing when they come, and they appreciate every activity. Musical chairs. We do musical chairs, and you walk around a circle, and then you grab an empty chair. They'll be dancing and clapping and singing as they go around the chairs to make an independent game of it. This is part of a carnival that we have and water slide. Uh, Now, one thing that I've noticed, usually at U.S. camps, the kitchen staff is pretty much doing kitchen work. With us, the kitchen staff is brought into the mainstream of camp. Oh, by the way, Vocelli is a word that we made up that means camp counselor. So that's what the shirts are. But the woman in the middle, it was her birthday. She was one of the kitchen workers. And so it started off with just singing her happy birthday and then dancing with her. And then the whole camp was in a sort of a conga line going through the dining room, and um, it became an event of its own rather than just congratulating somebody on her birthday. It became a camp event that went on for 10 or 15 minutes. And that's just the way things are. It just permeates the whole life. We've had about 200 international volunteers come work with us. This is a married couple from Chicago. Uh, they sometimes are camp people, sometimes they're just people who hear about us and want to be part of the program. And everybody they've been from 16 different countries. Everybody at the end of the 8 days of camp, 3 days of staff training, just is amazed at the difference in the kids by the end of camp. They're even more joyful, but they're assertive. They have goals for their lives that they never even thought of when they came to camp. That they, instead of looking at the world as a wall in their home, they look at it as a window, and they have they don't always achieve them, but they get an idea of, yes, I want to go to school, I want to study this, I want to be that. Whereas when they come to camp, their goals are very limited. Um, Swimming is one of those amazing things. They don't swim at home. In fact, most of them have not been in a swimming pool. And when they come to us, we want them to learn swimming, not for the reasons that kids in the US learn swimming, but because it shows them that they can do something that they thought they couldn't ever do. And if they think that they can't ever do swimming, what other things are in their view as being unattainable? Lots of things like going to university, getting a scholarship, going abroad, becoming a professional. We've shattered all those glass ceilings, and the kids do it themselves. We just give them the tools. We don't pave the way, we don't give them scholarships. We just say, look, there are ways to get financial aid. There are ways you can be a doctor, a lawyer, and whatever it is that you want to look into, explore it. At least find out that it's possible. One of our great breakthroughs was a very small thing. We had arranged a meeting. Some of the counselors who were in the US at the end of the summer came to Washington, and I brought them around. We had a meeting with the South African ambassador to the US. And we had it was a short meeting, but it was very nice. And the counselors went outside into the ante room while I chatted a little bit longer with the ambassador. And when I came out, they were talking to the secretary, and they said, she's from Soweto. So, well, so what? They said, well, we could be doing this. This is something she just graduated from school, decided she wanted to do something internationally, and she got to be the secretary to the ambassador. So it was a real aha moment for them to realize that we're not just talking about these things, they really happen. So it's very exciting. Um, Arts and crafts, again, it's not painting nice pictures, it's expressing yourself and getting your emotions out. Uh, the whole notion of getting outside your comfort zone, getting outside the place you were brought up, and establishing yourself in a new environment is very much what we're after and what these kids look how comfortable he is with a life jacket in just swimming. I mean, this is amazing. At the end of 8 days at camp, which is only 6 days of activities, only 6 days in the water, an hour a day, the kids are swimming. So it's very exciting to see. And I, certainly invite any of you who are interested in doing something like this. We don't need any expert skills for our programs, but volunteers coming over, one of the great things that the kids experience is talking to somebody from the States without it being an authoritarian type of discussion where we would be telling them what they should be doing. For us to get down on the floor with them, to be chatting with them, to be asking them about their lives, for them to be able to ask us questions is a complete breakthrough for them, and it's contributing to their growth by being there. So it's very exciting and it continues to be. We've had 12,000 kids through the program. We've had 101 camp sessions, and it's continuing. We're talking to other organizations about having camps in different cities and in different countries. That's one of the things I want to do. It's great fun to run the one camp, but we should be all over the world. And it'll happen. It'll happen. Anyway, I don't want to go on too long. If anybody has questions, I can just run through a few more slides and show you the one. Oh, this was fun. If you look carefully in the girl's hand with a cap on and see a photo,
I see it.
the photo is of President Obama. When I was in Ethiopia and went around to people's homes, there was always a picture of Haile Selassie, who was the
Sure.
ruler, and President Kennedy. And I thought having the first black president, this was 2008. I went to Obama, I called up Obama's office when he was a senator. I told him what I was doing, and I said, we want 200 photos that we can give to our kids and counselors because they're going to want to put you up in their homes. So he gave us 200 photos, brought them over, and this is December of 2008 after he was elected. We gave them out to the kids, and they were beyond themselves. You know Obama? Say, no, I don't know Obama. I just got to his office. So that was one of my highlights, just giving out his photo to the kids.
That's excellent. Phil, we do have one question. How are the children selected to come to the camps?
Yeah, it's a good way to put it because we don't ask for applications. We go to schools, children's homes, which are basically orphanages. And one thing that's turned itself around dramatically has been the clubs. The clubs were designed to be, let me get out of my, this is much more fun. They were designed to be where the kids went after camp to get more in-depth education about the life skills that we were talking about at camp. Well, word got out that we were having clubs. that we gave out food, that we talked about interesting things in their lives. And we started getting kids from the neighborhoods coming to us and wanting to come to the clubs before they'd ever been to camp. So now many of our kids at the clubs have never been to camp. And so we want to select them if they've been good attendees. We want them to be honored by coming to camp. So we get a lot of kids from the clubs coming to camp. So we've got a lot of kids to bring to camp.
Okay.
And of course, we want to get kids who don't have severe social problems that they won't uh, have problems interacting with other kids at camp.
Okay. I see someone had a raised hand. If you could if you've got a question, if you could put it in the chat or in the Q&A box, we'll get that addressed as quickly as we can. Do any of the children who have completed the camp and maybe worked as a counselor in the school club programs, do they come back to be camp counselors when they're old enough?
They do. One of the big differences over there is that being a camp counselor is a highly desirable and valued job. Not that we pay them a lot, but they love the work and they love contributing to their own community. And we have for our 20th anniversary, we've been doing this hmm, 22 years, 21 years. I think we're in our 22nd, 21st, 22nd. For our 20th anniversary, a group of the camp counselors came back to us because they can come any number of times. So some of them had been with us 5 and 6 sessions, and they came back and gave us a wonderful tribute and told us how much we had meant in their lives, and many of them were doing professional work now. One was a photographer. Several of them were working for the South African government. Several were at university getting advanced degrees. And they just wanted us to know that camp had made the difference in their lives.
Any particular success story that you'd like to share with us?
Well, one of them is the deputy to the Minister of Education in the Western Cape, which includes Cape Town. And she was in our first year of operation, she was a camper. And she ended up being a counselor, and she went to the US one summer as a counselor at a camp in Maine, and she's just risen through the ranks. Another guy contacted us. We hadn't heard from him in years. He had been a camper and a counselor, very low-keyed, quiet guy, and he's now a filmmaker. And he also has a program where he shows movies in schools uh, to give the kids some respite, some first run movies from Disney. And he's got an in with Disney where he gets the movies, and he's been bringing them to camp every session since last September. And and the most moving one to me was a guy I didn't remember. He had been a camper, a counselor, now he was a photographer, and he came up with that group of counselors who came up to visit us for our 20th anniversary. And he said, I'd be dead by now if it wasn't for camp. I was running in gangs, I was taking drugs, I was robbing and beating people up, and camp changed my entire life. And he said there are many, many other people like that. They just don't have access to sort of legitimate, societal, appropriate ways of behaving. They just walk out their door and they meet up with the gang members. And that's their choice. Stay in the house, join a gang. And camp gives them another choice. It's that simple. I mean, it
Yeah.
really is that simple. And what I'm doing is not something that most of us couldn't do. It's just step by step. You know, you bring over people who are specialized in different areas. We brought over the best camp trainer I know. He was dying to come over, and he's been back several times. Uh, it's a it's a privilege for people who have skills to contribute them to a group of kids that grabs onto those teachings and does something with it. When you think of it, it's the old story of the person on his deathbed saying, I went to the office too much. I should have spent more time with my family, with my loved ones, with whatever. We are doing the work of making a difference in somebody's life is not giving them food, not giving them clothing. It's really showing them how to look at the world with a different view. And that's what camp can do for kids. It can shift the way they look at the world. And it's so easy to do. It's so important to do. It's so much fun to do. Think of the fun of camp with the joy of not kids just having a good time, but saying, camp changed the trajectory of my life. I mean, that's amazing. You make a difference in 100, we have about 135 kids each session. You're making a difference just by being part of a group that is opening their eyes to a different way of looking at the world. It's pretty powerful stuff.
It is pretty powerful, and I guess that's how you measure success, in a program like that. Do programs like this exist in other parts of Africa? I know your Peace Corps background was from Ethiopia. Are there camps like this, or does your group have camps in Ethiopia?
Not, I always
Not
say,
yet.
instead of saying no, not yet.
Not
Uh,
yet.
we,
Okay.
we're trying to make probes into other countries. And I think people are worried about the technical nature of making it a success. I try to tell them it's not very difficult. It requires love, it requires a little bit of money, but it's not very expensive, and it requires just organization. Most of all, it takes a counselor staff that won't just throw a ball out and say, okay, kids, play soccer, but gets out there with the kids and interacts and encourages them and talks about sportsmanship and teamwork and the skills and the qualities that we want our kids to have and that we want kids anywhere to have. It's
Sure.
not an American thing. If we're just an American thing, it wouldn't work. But it works because kids are kids and they want what's good. And this is making themselves feel good, making other people feel good, and learning about how to make your life better is a winning formula. You don't get that in school. You get that by experiential education.
Phil, we have a question. One of our guests is wondering about cultural conflicts and how that is handled, at least in your camps.
Well, that was the importance of working with a local group to get off the ground. So there were two big cultural problems right at the beginning, taking kids away from their homes and having them go off with virtual strangers and talking about things that were taboo to speak about in the home. And we were just assured that by having an organization in Soweto be our partner, we'd get over the fear that the kids would be molested when they were taken away. And we were told, even though these things, and I still don't understand it, even though some of these discussion areas would have been taboo in their home, the parents wanted them to have those discussions. They just didn't want to have it with the kids. So it's a little bit of a fine line and quirky, but that was one of my original uh, questions. How can we talk about this if they won't talk about it at home, in school, or at church? And I was assured it'll be fine, and it was.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had 12,000 kids. We haven't had a single parent tell us they're upset with what we did. They joke, when the kids come home, they say, "What have you done to my child?" And they mean it completely complimentary.
I'm sure. What advice would you have for anyone in our audience that is thinking about starting this type of a program, whether it be um, globally based or US based? Where does one start?
I guess you start with what you know. I know camp, so you have camp as a hammer and everything looks like a nail. If you are a knitter, this woman who does the bears, I just got a letter from her last week. She's retiring. So she's not going to do it anymore. She's got a marvelous network of knitters. And now, oh, not only do they do the knitting of the bears, and they're beautiful bears, I'm sure she has a template that she distributes. She charges them $3 a bear to pay for the shipping overseas. So she doesn't have to raise money to do that. The knitters pay the money, and she gets to go around and either ship the bears overseas, or as she did with us, she came to visit us some years ago just to see what kind of a program we were and to be a part of it. So you can either start something that's new, team up with somebody who's already doing something that fits into your skill or interest area, but find an interest. And it's the old Nike thing, just do it. Don't invest the farm, but go slowly and see if it's going to work. I mean, who would have thought that simple old summer camp could make a big difference in people's lives? Well, it's not that it's summer camp, it's that it's done in a way that it engages the kids and gets them um, interested in something outside their immediate home environment. It could be soccer. There's a wonderful program called Grassroots Soccer, and they use soccer as a tool to get the kids outside the home and to doing other things. You just find a skill that you have and you start small and you use it for something bigger than the skill itself. Just remember that we call them level one skills and level two skills. The levels one skill is teaching the kids how to swim. The level two skill is showing them that this takes perseverance, it takes courage, and it takes dedication. And these are all skills that they need to recognize they have. And it's not about swimming itself, it's about getting outside
Sure,
the smallness of your own mind, but make it bigger. And it's about being courageous.
sure. Future goals for the camps? What are they?
Uh, Well, we provide a lot of employment for local people and we encourage them to start their businesses and to get beyond camp. Well, really, we want to get more camps going. We want to go to other countries. We want to go to places around South Africa, and we need to figure out a way to do it. The Trevor Noah Foundation came and visited us in April, and they want to pair us up with a group that they're working with. So, we just do it little by little and get organizations to see what we're doing. We don't want to talk to them about it. We want them to see us in action and to see the amazing stuff that these kids do and the way their minds just open up by being given permission to open up.
How about personally? How do you balance your personal life with your work life? We talked off camera before we started about your home here in Northern Virginia for a short period of time. What's that balancing act look like?
Well, I've never enjoyed, well, I shouldn't say I've never enjoyed. To me, vacations are usually going to different places and doing something. I like, to me, this isn't work. Camp is fun. I mean, camp is fun. Now, it's sometimes you have to organize, you have to do things that aren't fun in order to achieve the fun of camp. But to me, it's great. I would have been bored silly by now. I've been to about 80 of the 101 camps that we've had. I would have been bored crazy, but it's so great to see counselors blossom, to see the kids blossom. And to me, this is one of the great things about life. You know, you see, you're doing something that makes a remarkable difference in people's lives. And I think that's what we probably most of us would get the greatest satisfaction from. I know I have, but I don't say everybody needs to do it, but it's fun. So try something that you're good at and just how to make it into something bigger than you. And you can get kids to find something about themselves that they didn't know they had.
Sure. Well, I can see by the smile on these children's faces and the smile on your face that what you just shared with us is exactly how you stay inspired. Am I correct?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, those smiles are absolutely incredible. I know our theme for this month was ordinary people doing extraordinary things, but I got to put you in the category of an extraordinary person doing extraordinary things and getting a global smile from each and every one that you touch. Any last words that you'd like to share with us? That
No, it's
anything
been
that I haven't asked at this point?
um not, not really. It's just, uh, I don't know. It's a fun project and it's opens up all kinds of wonderful things. And the kids are remarkable and a pleasure to be with. I consider it, as I said, people coming over consider it a privilege to be working with them. I do every time. It's just what a delight to be with kids like this and to see them blossom. What what more could you want?
Well, thank you, Phil, for a lifetime of sharing, sharing your knowledge, sharing your expertise, and sharing your heart. And thank you for taking the hour to share with us today as well. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having
So, on behalf of AARP Virginia, I'd like to thank our guest speaker for sharing his time, his heart, and his valuable time with us this afternoon. We would love to get your feedback on today's program and ideas for future programs. So in the chat box is a link that you can click on to give us some information back in a survey. That survey will also be in the follow-up email that will contain the recording for today's program. Next week's Tuesday Explorer is changing pace a little bit. We'll be talking about going from unemployment to job security. So if that is of interest to you, go to aarp.org Tuesday Explorers to register for that program. In the weeks following, we're going to start our virtual tours of some of the area's military museums. So I hope to see you for those programs as well. So until next Tuesday, please stay curious and I'll see you next week. And Phil, thank you so much. Much appreciated.
You're welcome.